Thank you for watching Jelly Hangout on TVC News. If you've just joined us, you've missed quite a bit because we've been looking at the kidnap of the boys, the schoolboys in Kankara local government area of Katsina State. Consequences as a result of their kidnap, particularly as Boko Haram has claimed responsibility for the kidnap of these boys. And as we continue with the discussion, I'd like you to look at that question raised just before the break.
Yeah, you know, when we blame the military all the time, sometimes I feel bad for them, but they have to do their job. But they are overstretched. I don't want to say we abuse them. So many things that shouldn't be their job, we give to them. I was reading, I didn't know the DGSS saying that we should stop blaming security agencies for insecurities in our country.
Who do we blame?
Because, no, it's failure of government. Let's be honest. It's mainly failure of government. If those in government get it right, there will be, insecurity will reduce a lot. But when government policies end up creating mass unemployment, mass, unhappiness, poverty, hunger, this will escalate insecurity problems. Okay, we talk about soldier and the police. You know the state of the Nigerian police. If the police had been effective in local security, you wouldn't need the soldiers. And since we've drafted the soldier into this, how much success have we recorded? Some other people will say it could have been worse. I would say yes. But we are still not happy. I don't see, we haven't recorded meaningful success when you compare what we have put into this insurgency war. So this is not a time to say the military is not doing well. Even those who appoint people, the leaders, are not doing well. And we need to say it. They are not doing well. So it's not just the soldiers, because if those who are in charge of Nigeria are doing well, you can equip the police, you can retrain the police. You can retrain the police, you can reprofessionalize them, you can refocus them, you can do a lot of things. Then, if that happens, then you scale it up. You have civil defense, you have other paramilitary organizations. Before you now start talking about soldiers. But when a woman and her husband fight now, some people will say, let's go and call soldiers. That shows the extent to which we abuse. We overburden them with what shouldn't be their job.
All right, I'd like to come to you, BKO, for us to talk about the killings as well in Niger of 50 Nigerian refugees. But I'm told that Captain Shehu is now joining us live from Abuja. Good evening, Captain Sadiq Shehu. We're glad you could join us.
Good evening.
Yes. So, Captain, let's start with the call that mercenaries should be invited to help fight the war against insurgency in the northeast, which is now spreading to the northwest and north central. First of all, tell us, what do mercenaries do?
Well, thank you very much. If you want to do justice to the issue of mercenaries, first, you have to discard the idea of even calling them mercenaries. Because in all honesty, in current discourse, the word that is used is private military contractors, or PMCs. Yes. This is because mercenaries have had a negative connotation as somebody who is an illegal person involving himself in a conflict just for money. But from the 1990s to today, many countries of the world have realized that their militaries, the state militaries, may not be able to do all the functions which these countries are involved. So enter the world of private military contractors. So much so that from Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, we are seeing the influx of these private military contractors. What differentiates them from mercenaries? Yes, it's a matter of language. Mercenaries before, it's somebody, an individual, I can go and join a country and be fighting for them, and my allegiance is only to the dollar or to the naira, as the case may be. But what private military companies do, they are legally registered entities. and they look for retired military people, retired intelligence people, retired police people that have specific skills. And then they look for countries. The military job is a very wide job. There are countries that have ground forces, but they don't have an air force. There are militaries that have good air forces, but they don't have naval forces. So what the private military contractor does is to fill in a gap that you need. If you have a gap that you need, it's just like pick and choose. You bring a military, you want somebody who wants to fly, you bring a private military company that has pilots, and then they'll come and fly for you. So much so that now, even the biggest countries in the world, that is the US, Russia, they all use private military contractors for their fights. In fact, figures show the fight that the United States was involved in Iraq, more private military contractors died on behalf of the United States more than actual soldiers that are from the United States. So in all honesty, if we want to look at the issue, first we have to, because like I said, the word mercenary has this negative connotation. We have to look at what it is. Private military contractors, which are legally registered entities in their countries who provide their service. And when they come to your country,
Group Captain Sahid, my colleagues BKO and Adekunle Yusuf, they have questions for you as well. So I'm just going to give them the floor to allow them to ask you questions. Go ahead, BKO.
Good evening, Group Captain Sadiq. You are a living witness to what transpired just before the 2015 election when we brought in these private military contractors, as you like them to be called. And a lot of things happened during that period. We also brought in the Chadians who helped us in that fight. What did you see the so-called mercenaries do? What difference did they make during that time when we needed to take back the communities that were in the hands of Boko Haram?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. The issue of the private military contractors that came to Nigeria, that was in 2014. They actually, they were contracted to come to Nigeria in December 2014. They came in, and their first action was in February 2015. Now, there are, objective observers who, since this conflict started since 2009, they have been keeping figures of casualties incurred by our armed forces, casualties caused by Boko Haram, area occupied by Boko Haram. In all honesty, there is no doubt. When you look at these figures, month by month, year by year, the period between February 2015 to March 2015 showed on the ground that the private military contractors came, they made a very good impact on the operation. There's no way somebody can doubt that. Now, when you look at a number of attacks that Boko Haram was able to execute within that time, the areas that were recovered from Boko Haram, and the few attacks on armed forces, definitely there is verifiable evidence that the private military contractors performed in terms of making gains for the Nigeria against Boko Haram. Now, other issues that people raise, they talk of cost. Yes, like we say in Nigerian parlance, better soup na money maker. In all honesty, yes, mercenaries are businesses. They come and sacrifice their lives for a country that is not their country, as opposed to a soldier who does that for his country. For that, you pay money. But then, in all honesty, again, the money you negotiate is like any contractor. Somebody can get a contractor that will build a 2-bedroom bungalow and will pay him 5 million. Somebody who is not a good negotiator might pay 10 million. So whether you pay a private military contractor higher than what you're supposed to get is a function of your own negotiation skills. Yes. If you want the service of private military contractors, like any other contract, many people will bid, and it's up to your negotiation skill. So if it is in terms of delivery, not only in Nigeria, wherever private military companies operate, in all honesty, they have added value to what the armed forces of that country, benefit. We have other, things against them that people are saying they could prolong the contract so that they too will be in money, or they could do human rights abuses. But again, it's a function of oversight. If I bring a plumber to my house to come and repair my toilet, if I'm standing over his head and I tell him only repair this toilet, he's not likely to go into my bedroom to say he's going to do something. So honestly, it's a function of oversight. The bottom line I am saying, there is no shame in present military parlance for a country, because countries realize that, you see, the security profession, the military profession has many angles. Your own military or the military of a country might be good in one aspect, they may not be good in the other. They may be good in one aspect, they may not be good in the other. You check the area where you think you are weak, and then you bring the private military contractor to come and fill. And again, back to that 2014, what actually happened is not as if the Nigerian Armed Forces surrendered everything to PMC. Without being indiscreet, there were areas that our forces were weak. These private military contractors, when they came, they added value to those areas, and the results were so visible that overall we had a very good result.
Adekunle, you have a question?
Yeah. In this kind of situation, when our soldiers go out to fight on our behalf, there is this feeling of patriotism. We do know what they are doing for us. If we engage private military contractors, what about patriotism issues?
Yeah, their commitment.
Hello, sir.
Hello, I can hear you.
Yes. How do we deal with patriotism, matters in this whole scenario? If you bring them,
and now you have to be very realistic and pragmatic. Like I emphasize, the private military contractor is a businessman, whereas that is the major difference with a soldier. A soldier is fighting for his country, he is fighting for patriotism. But for the private military contractor, it is only work. He is there to earn his living. So in all honesty, it will not be fair, or it will not be realistic if we expect a private military contractor to have patriotism. But what they have in essence is professionalism. Like a very good businessman, he wants to be said, when I went to country A, I performed very well, because that is what is going to give him another contract in country B. So in place of patriotism, you may have professional. What will move him is professionalism. What will move him is what you are paying him. Because after your own work, certainly there are other customers lining up to hire him if he performs very well.
So why do you think that we are finding it difficult to get this job done? Why is it taking us so long? We said Boko Haram was a ragtag army. We described them as people who go around barefooted, yet we are unable to get this job done. What is the problem?
Yes, a very interesting question. Ragtag army versus professional army. If I go back, would have been dramatic. When you compare what in the Nigerian parlance we call an ajibota and ajipako. An ajibota is a guy who may not go to school until the driver comes and honks, until he takes Milo. That is the only way an ajibota can perform. But ajipako, can take 20 kilometers to go to school because he's not expecting anything. So it's the same essence. A professional army or a professional military is organized. When you say a section, or you say a platoon, or you say a company, this is a unit with specific number of equipment, with specific number of officers, with specific number of soldiers, with specific lines of receiving food and what due, with specific number of ammunition. So being that, because it is in that mindset, once any of these variables is missing, a professional military is going to struggle. On the other hand, a ragtag army is not confined by certain niceties, because they are ragtag army. That's actually what they are. But they are not confined by this. In a platoon, I must have so-so mortar, I must have so-so APC. The insurgent is not, he doesn't care about that. So in all honesty, is the makeup. The military can only, perform when it has those niceties. In Nigerian Defense Academy, there's a subject they called organization and administration. They tell you that in a platoon, you have to have so-so number of men. You have to have so-so number of officers. You have to have so-so number of APCs. You have to have, each soldier has to have so-so number of rounds to march into the battle. So-so amount of food in his knapsack as he's moving into the battle. So a soldier that is trained with that mindset, in all honesty, if you don't provide him with these things, he is likely to struggle. but the insurgent is not. And now again, as to numbers, while a military, an official military, a national military, they have a certain number. For example, when you are going to attack a place, the tactical judgment is that you should have 3 times the number of people. The people attacking should have 3 times the number of the people defending. Such figures do not mean anything to the insurgent. So that is why I hear people saying that how many are Boko Haram that will be holding our forces. In all honesty, while a professional military can only function with a certain number, the insurgent, on the other hand, the small numbers is what gives him his strength. Let's go to the Zabarmari incident. The people that killed people in Zabarmari, the Boko Haram, I don't think they are up to 50. But you can see the mayhem they caused. Now, if you go to the same Zabarmari, given the population, given the area, even though it's a village, if you want to really secure that village, whereas Boko Haram came with 50 people, you probably need like 4 or 5 times that number to really. So honest, this is where, that's why it is called an asymmetric. Asymmetric warfare is that all the strengths that a normal military has, the insurgent can dilute those strengths. Whereas a military wants to mass before they attack, the insurgent, he wants to be dispersed. Whereas a military wants to have headquarters, company headquarters, battalion headquarters, the insurgent doesn't need that. Whereas the security has to have, the professional military needs to have a certain number of vehicles, the insurgent doesn't have that. So in all honesty, in these issues of equipment, of men, for many years, in fact, incidents show that since the return of democracy, in all honesty, this Boko Haram caught us without enough numbers in men, without enough equipment. Our highest showing was during the ECOMOG. But from the ECOMOG, in terms of equipment, in terms of capacity, it has been a journey downward.
Yes.
Credit to all the governments that came from Obasanjo up to now, the president, they did their bit. But the problem is that there was a big hole. A big hole created over the years. A big hole that now it will take a concerted effort. If you look at Nigeria, apart from our various internal security problems, Nigeria still wants to project global power, wants to project sub-regional power, wants to project continental power. You all need men and equipment to do that. The last global terrorism index showed Nigeria as number 3. I studied that figure, number 3 was the highest distance. I went to another list that is prepared by the International Institute for Strategic Studies. What do? They rate countries as military power per capita or per 1,000. In all honesty, almost all the countries that were doing MNJTF with them, in terms of soldiers per 10,000 population, they all have a higher figure than Nigeria. Yeah. I also cross-checked all the countries that have had insurgency in the recent past, like Afghanistan, like Colombia, Nigeria, like Iraq, which have been rated with Nigeria. When you check their military power per capita, they are having from 14 per 1,000. I think the list is 7 per 1,000. What we are having in Nigeria now is 0.7 per 1,000 population. Wow. Whereas even Chad, I'm sorry to say even Chad is having like 3 point something per 1,000. So in all honesty, I think it is high time we must accept that we, just like the last guest I heard him talking about police, we don't have enough police for our population, for our area. At the same time, we don't have enough military for our security internally, for the peacekeeping operation. Remember, Nigeria is still participating in peacekeeping, even as we are going this thing. We have troops in Somalia, we have troops in Mali, because of course we want to maintain our international presence, because it has its own side. So definitely we have to accept. And again, it's time to talk frankly. When we take the history of our civil war, Nigeria started the civil war with only 1 division. But an emergency was recruitment because the need was there. So much so that at the end of the civil war, we had 250,000 officers and men. Again, in all honesty, I didn't see us doing any emergency recruitment as if we were a country at war. We have maintained our figures. It is not going to work. Because in all honesty, I used to tell people, if you bring George Patton, with the minuses we have in equipment, with the minuses we have in men, even if you bring George Patton or you bring Romet, the famous German, he is going to struggle. So in all honesty, I want an honest opinion, an honest conversation between the executive, between the legislature and the military hierarchy and the police hierarchy in this order. What actually the number that you need, what equipment we need. It may not happen now. And this is why the issue of private military contraction might come in. We know we are not a weapon-producing country. And whether it is written or not written, up till now Nigeria is suffering from some form of sanctions from some of these Western countries that sell weapons. They may not say it. So even if without sanctions, even if we have the money, even if they agree to pay, the kind of equipment we need, even if we pay the money from today, this Tuesday or Wednesday, you are not likely to get those equipment within the next 2 years or 3 years. So what are we going to do in those 2 years, 3 years? This is where, me personally, I think the issue, as Governor Babagana Zulum said, of looking at PMC as a complement, not to replace our armed forces, and as a quick stopgap measure, I think it is not an idea that we should throw away. Another thing, again, please, sorry. This recent, whenever there's an attack, what I do normally, whether in the northeast or in the southwest, like we have in Katsina now, I look at the reaction time. When did the attacker start? When did the first military or police presence around? In all honesty, if all over, you will see issues of more than 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. The last in Katsina, from what we hear from the people there, the attack or at least shooting started around 9 p.m. in the night. The first security presence came on Saturday, the following day. It is too much. Why is that reaction time so long? It's because there are no military or security forces near the area, or they don't have mobility assets. So these are really german things that there should be discussion.
Thank you very much for giving us a robust aerial view of the exact situation of things as far as, tackling insurgency in Nigeria's north is concerned. Retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu is a private security consultant and counterterrorism expert. He's also an adjunct professor at George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies. He's a former director of information, Nigeria Air Force, and former deputy head of security at the African Union Commission headquarters, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, BKO, just before we exit the situation of terrorism in the north of Nigeria, let's look at Niger Republic. 50 Nigerian refugees killed. This brings to mind the Multinational Joint Task Force. What exactly is happening with them? And it reminds me of what you said yesterday about Niger being a failed state. So how did the terrorists, have enough time to kill 50 Nigerian refugees in a country?
The first thing to ask is, why did we have to go to Niger Republic? Why did our people relocate to Niger Republic? It's because even in terms of Boko Haram attacks, Boko Haram operates, they have cells in Cameroon, northern Cameroon, or the Fotokol and all those areas. And they also have cells in Chad and Niger Republic. But the truth is, Niger Republic is way safer than Nigeria.
Okay, just hold on there. We're signing out of TVC our sister station, TVC Entertainment, but we continue Journalist Hangout on TVC News.
The truth is, Niger Republic is safer than our country currently. You have heard stories of traders who earn their living in Katsina and in Sokoto State going to sleep in Niger Republic because they know that the bandits usually come in the night. So by that time, they will have left by 6 p.m. They are in neighboring Niger Republic and they feel safe there. Abadam local government has 158 communities. Abadam local government in Borno State. There is no community out of this 158 where anybody is living as I speak today. The only people you see, and you see them only in Malam Fatori, which is the headquarters of Abadam local government, are the soldiers. We have military presence in Malam Fatori because we've always fought Boko Haram in that area. That was where they killed Colonel Abu Ali, the great tank commander. Now, because Malam Fatori, because Abadam is not safe, or was not safe, our people relocated to neighboring Niger Republic. I've spoken in the past about how the current governor Zulum used to go and distribute relief materials and palliatives inside Niger Republic in Difa Prefecture. That was where I was going to share food to them. At least I'm aware that he has gone there at least 2-3 times. He also recently returned from the place. So we have that relationship. Now, Boko Haram, deliberately, that community, there are up to 40,000 Nigerians resident in that community. Boko Haram targeted that community so that they can kill Nigerians who are there. And even the shelter provided for those IDPs, they went there and set some of them ablaze inside their houses. The Abadan Community Association has already buried 27 of the people who were killed. Some were burnt beyond recognition. So the truth is, and I've said before, when the president claimed in his June 12 speech that all the IDPs had returned home, I said this was not true. If all IDPs had returned home, what are they doing in Niger Republic? If you go to Difa in Niger Republic, you see Nigerian IDPs. If you go to Cameroon, you see people who fled from Kalabalge, local government, Ran, especially there's a town called Ran. That's where they picked those midwives that Boko Haram eventually slaughtered. They are in Cameroon taking refuge because their country is not safe.
Not safe.
158 communities, and there's not one in which you find anybody. I dare anybody to prove me wrong. I've said it before that even the governor of the state, the town of his birth, Zulum, that's the name of his hometown, and that town is in Monguno local government. The governor has not gone home since 2014. I'm saying it again for the people who always think that I raise alarm. This is the truth. I go to Borno State all the time, and the information that I'm providing is authentic. Not one person will come out to say I've lied. Governor Zulum, his hometown, nobody has lived there for years. That is the truth. And that's the way it is with many other big people from Borno State. Senator Kyari, I was even saying that he had not gone home in 4 years. I said, no, Jide, you made a mistake. I've not gone home since 2014. Senator Kyari, who represents Borno North in the Senate. The Speaker of Borno State House of Assembly, Lawan Abdul Karim, is from Buzamala local government. He has not gone home for years.
BK, will they still feel safe?
When his father died,
his
father was buried in Maiduguri. He was not buried in their hometown. I'm saying this not to embarrass, but to say the truth, so that those who lie, who have made a career out of lying and portraying things as rosy, the world can determine who indeed is saying the truth. And we are saying the truth for the sake of our country, so that our country can get better, so that we can be better protected, so that we can know what the problems are and then find the solution, not to continue to lie like people who do not believe that God exists. So this is the thing. Why did our people go and take refuge in Niger? If their country was safe, they would have no business. They've been in Niger for years. No food. Just living from hand to mouth. If the country is safe, they will be happy to come back home.
To return home.
Yes. And these are not people that their standards are high. If you provide a safe place for them, they will do their farming and they will be happy. I was in Mafa, I saw women farming beans by the roadside with soldiers guiding them. They want, their farming gives them joy. And God has blessed that place with extremely fertile land, where you can grow rice without any need for fertilizer. But no security. So our people can't even fend for themselves.
So what are the consequences of this, killing on their safety in a community where they thereto felt safe, safer than their own homeland, Nigeria?
A lot of them will still remain there. Talk to me months after. A lot of them will rather stay there than come home. Because the whole of Abadan, nobody is there. So what are you going to do there? You know that if you go, you are still going to die anyway. People have relocated in the past, relocated too early. And then Boko Haram came and slaughtered them. So a lot of people don't want to make that mistake anymore. This is, in a long time, this kind of attack didn't take place in Niger. So they are going to console themselves that, well, this happened, so no problem. After even Chad, that is safer than both countries, both Nigeria and this, Boko Haram killed 90 soldiers in one day in Chad. So they will tell themselves that it happens until they see clear signs that security has improved in their country. Honestly, they will not come back home.
Adekunle, still on the same matter, but now let's look at it, on a regional level. What can the governments of Niger, Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria do, to forestall further killings?
I think before the last president, before President Muhammadu Buhari took over, I think former President Jonathan, there was this multinational joint and all, and it was always going to some of these countries. We haven't heard much about that initiative lately, because at some point it worked. Nigeria, we need help. People from Niger, there are times they need us as well. Chad, there are times we need them, but there are times they need us as well. So if we collaborate, it's going to be to the benefit of, okay, what do we gain when you try to secure an area, Boko Haram, they leave, they run, to Niger or Chad or wherever, and after they come back. But if all of us, collaborate, Boko Haram is a common enemy as far as I'm concerned. Some food for us, for Niger, for Chad, for every country around us. But I don't think we've done enough in this area. Maybe we would have recorded more, successes. But those in government, maybe they have better explanation. But so far, a lot has not been done in that area lately. But maybe with something coming, we need to look. That's one direction they need to look into.
That needs to be reviewed, absolutely, given recent reports, and to forestall, further reoccurrence. The MNJTF needs to be reviewed. As we move on, the second wave of COVID-19 is upon us, and the impact is hitting home with rising cases. As such, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Malam Mohammed Bello, has threatened to impose a second lockdown on Abuja. Bello argued that the FCT administration may have no other option than to declare another lockdown if residents particularly continue to ignore safety protocols. In Kaduna, all schools have been ordered shut from Wednesday. A statement from the governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, says this is part of efforts to contain the surge in COVID-19 infections in the state. And, schools have also been shut indefinitely in Katsina, but not as a result of COVID-19. But with COVID-19 in view now, before we begin to look at the impact on education, let's look at FCT and the position of the FCT minister. Can Nigeria afford a second lockdown if the federal government decided to take a second look at it based on the rising cases? PQ.
I don't think so. I don't think so. And even if we do it, I don't think we will record tremendous success. It will be largely frustrated. People will not comply. I think that all that we can do is to enforce the protocols that are in place and do maybe partial lockdown, just lock down some sectors. If they do their investigation, I'm sure the PTF will be able to tell us where a lot of these infections are taking place. They will be able to zero in on some states where we are experiencing usually high numbers, and then do the needful, not necessarily to do a countrywide lockdown. For example, some businesses that we are allowed to reopen, we may have a look at them again, or even some religious houses that we are allowed to reopen. We may take a second look at that decision, or come up with new restrictions that will not necessarily warrant shutting them totally, but will ensure that physical distancing is adhered to. They've got to roll out, government has got to roll out enforcers. I talked about the governor of Rivers State who went to a church. Maybe he doesn't go to church regularly, and just went to church that day and saw that people were not complying with the directives of government. They were not obeying the COVID-19 protocol, and he was very angry. He said, you are the same people who claimed we did not open churches. We opened churches, we told you what to do, but you people are refusing to obey. And I'm sure that even in mosque, people have generally also relaxed. So this is the time for government and its agents to move out and begin to enforce the COVID-19 protocols, because that will save us. A lockdown may not necessarily put this thing under control. But if we make up our minds that, look, we are going to wear our face masks when in public, and we will not wear it on our chin because it's not called chin mask, it's face mask. We are going to wear it to cover the nose, not that your nose will be jutting out. By even breathing out, you can infect people, and then you put it here, you deceive yourself that you are wearing a mask. You are not wearing a mask, you know. So if we can enforce those COVID-19 protocols, reach out to churches again, assess the level of compliance, reach out to mosque, assess the level of compliance. Where they are not complying, we then reel out
the necessary
sanctions or issue warnings, because nobody can be bigger than the state. No one church can be bigger than the state. No church leader can be bigger than the state. No Islamic cleric can be bigger than the state. No mosque, no matter how large, no matter the expanse of land it occupies, can be bigger than the state. So the state will have its laws, and people ought to obey those laws. That is how to keep everyone safe. Look at the Kaduna State governor. Is worried that there is already between 30 to 35% infection rate in Kaduna, which was the way it was at the peak, at the apogee of the pandemic. So, which is really troubling. If at this time we are approaching 35% infection rate, which means that when they supply 500 samples, 35% of those samples will come back as positive. It's troubling. That shows that the second wave is here. We need to also investigate what has been said, what is said to be happening in our airports, the entry points into our country, where people are now in the desire to make money, simply give people traveling to our country fake PCR results and then collect money from them. People are supposed to be subjected to tests. I've not seen where people love money even more than their own soul than in Nigeria. You are supposed to let these people undergo tests. You are now collecting money from them and giving them already prepared test certificates. So how many of those people are we sure are not coming to our country with infections? After all, this whole thing began through air travel. Came into our country through air travel. Do you know how many people have come into our country since we decided to ease things? Now look at the situation we find ourselves. The Chief Justice of Nigeria is also infected. That was why he didn't attend the oath-taking ceremony for, I think, 72 lawyers who became senior advocates of Nigeria. It was the next most senior judge, Rose Vivo, that performed the oath-taking. So this thing is here. More than 407 soldiers now have been subjected to tests. We don't know how many of them will come down with the thing. Already almost 30 have officially, been confirmed to be carrying the virus. Even the Chief of Army Staff is in isolation. He couldn't attend his son's wedding last weekend. So we are already approaching a very dire situation, and a decision has to be taken, a drastic decision has to be taken before things degenerate beyond this point.
Adikole, your thoughts on the same issue, but this time I also want you to, while looking at, BK, reviewing BK's commentary, tell us what are the long-term consequences on the education sector?
Before that, what Jide said, very valid, great. But those that we police or enforce preventive protocols, they also need to show example. When you see events that government, organize, people in government organize. Did you watch TV yesterday? The state government, was carried out, spent several hours showing event on live TV. You want to swear in newly elected local government or officials, chairmen, as you call them. You spent hours. Did you see it?
That's Kogi, I mean.
That is Kogi.
But that one does not even believe that COVID
is that a government that you will look up to for succor?
Hold it there. We have another call on the line. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, go ahead with your contribution.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Jide and co.
Good evening, sir.
I want to, a quick one here, contribute to the topic just before now. That's the one that has to do with the insurgency and the killing. Every time I hear us talk about this, I cannot but just see us as talking for talking's sake. Sorry to say it. But you see, I don't think the people up north even take it as serious as we down south take it. So the more we talk about this thing, the more I see ourselves as, outsiders that are crying more than they believe. The reason is this. Zulum, the governor of Borno State, is one man I used to respect like anything. But when I heard him a couple of days back say that Borno is even better now under Buhari than it used to be in the days of Goodluck and all that, I couldn't but wonder that these people, and I discussed with someone who said it's politics. I said, no, you can't play politics with life, life of the people. So these people don't even take this thing serious. Now, let me tell you something, Ogadide.
Unfortunately. Thank you very much, Basis. All the same for calling. Your contribution is well noted, but far from us talking for talking's sake. I believe the conversations go a long way most of the time, and the feedback we get from BK Hotel, tell us that we're doing something right. Mm. All right, Adekunle.
Okay, when you look at what is happening, it's not only in Nigeria that you have, possibility of a second wave. Even bigger countries, you have them. In Africa, we are not the only one, so nobody should panic. But the truth is, the virus has not changed. Just like the president of Ghana said recently, what has changed is our adherence to preventive protocols. We let our guards down. We no longer do what we were doing before. You understand me? Now, if you want the government to do something, those in government are not even doing the right things. They are not living by good examples. You understand me? You need to look across, attend events by government. So when you want ordinary folks like me and you to do the right thing, the leaders should lead by example. From churches to mosques, they are not the only ones. Go to motor parks, go to market, go to our vehicles, field to the. You see the way we do things. We need to go back to those preventive measures. If you don't do them, we must not allow another lockdown. Number one, it's not going to work. Number two, it's going to further destroy our economy. Then it's going to increase insecurity we're talking about. Because this time around, if you do any lockdown, believe me, with the level of misery, the level of hunger, poverty, everything that we have now, you just realize that you have a lot of robbery, a lot of looting, so nobody wants that. So government, first of all, lead by example. Then when you lead by example, enforce these preventive, protocols. By first of all, show example. If you go this way, if we allow our education to be destroyed, then there is no hope anymore for our country. Because with the way we are going, Remember, throughout this year, no tertiary institution owned by the public
produced any graduate
as done anything. This is not good for Nigeria. The other day we spoke about it. Also, we started by lockdown, and when lockdown, we removed the lockdown. What should happen for a government that knows the value of education? Everything that is necessary, do it. Mop up the youth from the seats. That is to say, let them return to schools. That has not happened. So now, if you now think about another lockdown, it means we are ready to destroy the fragile economy. We are ready to destroy the fragile security. Then we are now ready to destroy the future, because without education, we don't have future for our children.
And we hope not. As we coast home, BK, I'd like to know your thoughts on herd immunity, particularly because though the world is recording some progress in vaccine development, but even before it gets to the third world, even when it gets to the third world, there's also the challenge of affordability that we have to think about. So how much worse will it get before we can record that scientific stage of herd immunity?
Honestly, because this ailment itself is still being studied, there are still some things that we don't know about it. And it's such a crazy idea that you get infected, you get treated, you are well, and you don't get any immunity as a result. You can still be infected again. That's what scares me about it. And
True.
I have my fears for the governor of Kaduna State, who survived COVID-19, along with some of his aides, including one of my friends who works with him. And he's back in isolation again. So it's just terrible that you could be infected, you could be treated. After the trauma, you could still fall sick again, contract COVID-19. So it's a very terrible kind of ailment, and the best we can do, the vaccines will not put an end to it. In any case, when the vaccines are ready, Okonjo Iweala has told us that the vaccines should come into Nigeria in January. Well, I don't want to say I disbelieve her, but the truth is, even when the vaccine gets here, it can't go around. Just as the Pfizer people have told the Americans that no, you can't get as much as you want because we have commitments to other nations. So let's put the issue of the vaccine aside and do what is needful. Let's protect ourselves. It is cheaper to protect ourselves
than to treat it.
Than to come down and then have to treat yourself. If we follow the protocols, it's a lot cheaper and we will stay safe. I don't think that we have a better choice than to protect ourselves, go around with alcohol-based sanitizer. There are people who will not be happy if you do not shake their hands. Shake their hands, but after that, reach for your sanitizer and quickly do it. Because we forget easily. We put our hands, our fingers on our heads. Before you know it, you get infected. But just have the sanitizer and use it constantly. I'm seeing even shops now slashing the price of sanitizers by 50% because they want to quickly dispense with it. Stop all that, because this thing is back. People will buy those sanitizers. You are trying to do clearance sales for sanitizers when this thing is still very much air.
It's okay for them to slash the price.
Do you have
Who
a
gets
problem
it at the discounted rate before the price goes
It's clearance
up?
sales that they are trying to
Let
do.
them do
And once they do
Let
it, there will be no
them
sanitizer.
No, it should make it more affordable for people.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the program. That's all on Journalist Hangout today. You can join us again tomorrow for another edition of the program. Don't forget, we're on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria. Amen. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Today on the program, Boko Haram claims responsibility for the kidnap of Kankara schoolboys, kills 50 Nigerian refugees in Niger Republic, as more Nigerians demand that mercenaries finish off the fight against insurgents. And later on the show, Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Bello, threatens second lockdown over COVID-19 resurgence as Kaduna State orders closure of schools across the state. I will be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Adekunle Yusuf, while retired Captain Sadiq Shehu will join us from Abuja in the course of the program. Gentlemen, it's 10 days to Christmas, and 2020 is gradually coming to an end. Journalist Hangout starts now. It is a familiar story, but this time with furious and frightening dimension. The Boko Haram insurgents have claimed responsibility for the kidnap of hundreds of schoolboys at the government-signed secondary school Kankara, Katsina last Friday. In an audio message released on Tuesday, the terror group announced that they abducted the boys because Western education is evil. It is a worrying sign that the insurgents may have extended their influence to the northwest. And in the face of the race for the safe return of the kidnapped students, Boko Haram fighters killed 50 Nigerian refugees in Niger Republic. In the attack, many residents were shot, mostly at close range, and some houses torched. Meanwhile, there are growing calls from Nigerians for the federal government to engage mercenaries to finish off the fight against insurgency in the northeast. Welcome once again to the program, as I also welcome my guest, Babajide Kolade Otitoju. Welcome as usual.
Thank you so much.
And Adekunle Yusuf, a friend of the house.
I'm glad
Welcome
to
to the program.
Thank you.
So, BK, only yesterday we were talking about how similar this attack and kidnap is to Chibok and Dapchi in the northeast.
Yeah.
And today we've heard that Shekau has claimed responsibility for the kidnap. What's your immediate reaction?
Yes, my immediate reaction is that what the Shekau faction of Boko Haram said in April, that it had relocated some of its men to the North Central. They actually published a picture of Boko Haram men having prayers the Muslim way in a forest in the North Central around Niger State. At that time, I was worried because the Shekau that I know does not lie. It does not, if he says we have done this, if you investigate, you'll see that indeed he had done it. It does not believe in lie. So, what we can deduce from this is that they are working with some bandits on ground. And it is not unusual for terror groups to work with similar groups that have similar intentions with them. You can see that ISIS has been working with Boko Haram for years, especially the Al-Banawi faction of Boko Haram. That is the faction that ISIS recognizes, and they are now affiliated to ISIS. That's why it's now called Islamic State of West Africa Province. So they no longer see themselves as part of Boko Haram, but as part of ISIS West Africa. And Al-Shabaab too. For a long time, Al-Shabaab also had some form of relationship with Boko Haram. In fact, some Boko Haram elements around 2010, 2011 were actually trained in Somalia by Al-Shabaab, because I remember the late NSA, Azazi, told me that they got information that Boko Haram men were being trained in Somalia. So terrorist groups sometimes work together. Sometimes too, a terror group could ask, if one terror group succeeded in kidnapping an individual. Another terror group could offer bigger money and have that victim transferred to their group. That was the fear that the Americans had over the fate of their man that they successfully rescued recently, because they got information that there were plans by the bandits who kidnapped him in the Niger Republic and brought him into Nigeria to transfer him to another terror group, probably Boko Haram. So the linkage is always there, where their ambitions have some form of convergence. They are prepared to work together to achieve their aim. But the truth is, the people who kidnapped these boys were bandits who had been operating in the area for a long time. Even some of the survivors have said that those who kidnapped them spoke Fulani, you know. And the bandits who operate in that area, who kidnap people in Zamfara, who kidnap people in Kassai, who kidnap people in Sokoto, all of that area, they are well known by the language that they speak. They are largely Fulani from outside of Nigeria. I've interviewed victims of banditry, victims of cattle rustling in their refugee camp. I've interviewed them sometime in 2018, and they told me that the people who kidnapped them were Barai, which is the way the local people, the people in the really rural setting, that is how they pronounce Fulani. They say Barai Hilani. That the people who kidnapped them, and they describe their outlook. This long hair.
You said that yesterday,
yes.
Yeah.
So they are the people who operate in the area. So we are now seeing signs that Boko Haram had some form of relationship with them, you know, just for them to achieve their goal. So although there are still people who doubt that this is the case, but I don't think that Shekau has ever claimed responsibility for what he did not do. I'm not aware that has ever happened. So there must
this is
be
no
some form
empty claim.
No. There must be some form of relationship between those local bandits in that area and Boko Haram fighters. Remember that American security official who warned that they are even trying to spread their tentacles even down south. So the earlier we sit up, the better. Governors of the Southwest, if they know what they are doing, this is the time to begin to empower Amotekun by providing all that they need so that they can protect our people in this area and actually locate the whereabouts of people. Sitting back in their state capitals and watching bandits kill people even as big as traditional rulers would not push them in the right place in history. So this is the time for everyone to know that, look, security has collapsed in our nation. People will call you names, but we have reached the point now that we must admit the truth. We must stop deceiving ourselves. Security has collapsed. The strategies have stopped working, if indeed our strategies. The strategies are no longer working, and the earlier people realize the mess that we have found ourselves, the better for every one of us.
True talk. Yesterday we were talking about information management, how the governor wanted to be the only go-to source for information about how many students were kidnapped. And today Boko Haram says 523 schoolboys were abducted in Kankara. How do you reconcile this with the information that we got from the state government yesterday that 323 students were kidnapped?
Of course, we have to play on the number, but to me, every human life matters to me. Even one is bad enough. You heard what Jide said. The entire American, might was put into use because of one person. You know how distant America is to this country? They had to move everything to come and rescue one soul. So 500, 300, 600, too bad. Even one is too bad. Believe me, this is a very, very sad moment in the history of Nigeria. Things have never, ever been this bad. Nigerians have never been unhappy as we are now. We have never felt unsafe like this in our life. The worst moment in the history of our country. That's what we're passing through now. Nobody is safe. We are talking about Sokoto, we are talking about Katsina, we are talking about Borno. Believe me, even other parts of the country.
Yes.
We are not happy. We are not safe. I won't be if I start talking about I don't know what you call what you have around. You see them, in traffic code of they carry cutlass, carry gun, carry stick. But let's return to Katsina. The way information is managed, you see a president, an aide of the president, say he is 10. You see somebody saying this. Believe me, this is every life is worth everything. We should be able to make sure that this doesn't happen, because if we had issues with the last administration, we may say it has never happened before. What has happened under President Muhammadu Buhari shows that Nigeria has never learned any lesson. We had this before. We should not be having it again. This is a public school. We should change. We should do a lot about security, especially in boarding schools that are public, schools. How can a group, whether you call them bandits, I don't care about the name, whether you call them Boko Haram, come to a school, had enough time and kidnap hundreds of people in this country that has a government with all our security agencies? Believe me, something is wrong. Something is wrong. With the way we are going, I don't want to be saying bad things. With the way we are going, things must change right now. We'll be talking about the security, insecurity, service chiefs, everything. Nothing has changed.
Yeah,
this government,
and as we give security agencies and government something to chew on, BK, what options are open to them to get the boys back? 523 according to Boko Haram, 323 according to the government.
313 according to
yesterday 323 was what was quoted. I hope we're not looking at another Chibok, at another Dapchi, where we're counting days, years.
The truth is, the defense spokesman, Major General Nenche, confirmed that the number of persons that the governor said were missing were the persons missing by their own findings. And they were talking to school staff and all that, the principal, the workers in the school. Don't forget that some of those kids returned. And some were actually not in school at the time it happened. Some had gone home to see their parents because it was a weekend, So some were allowed to go and see their parents. But from the information that the government provided, in my view, it's what I would believe, because I don't think in the state that Masari has found himself now, deceiving himself is the solution. A man who can openly weep like that, it shows you how concerned he was. And I've asked him before that, why did you risk your life going to have a meeting with
the bandits? Yes,
the leader of the bandits in Zamfara and environs at that time, Buhari Daji, who is dead now. And he said, see, I'm not better than the people that they kidnap. I am the son of a milk seller. My life was just, I grew up just like any other person that, look, it could have been me. And I felt if the security agencies cannot provide security, despite all the resources that we made available to them. Why shouldn't I do it? That's the governor cry. You know? Why shouldn't I do it? I just felt that was the solution. So we shouldn't dwell so much on the number of persons.
But should Governor Masari and the federal government explore dialogue now?
The truth is, let me tell you, if military action was to work, it should have worked just immediately after they were kidnapped. Once you give them so much space, they will then begin to spread those children around. That is what they did. That is what Boko Haram did. Because, look, criminals also learn from history. They won't want a situation in which you drop commandos into their camp and just take everyone away. No. When criminals kidnap people in large numbers, they have learned to keep them in different places so that no single rescue operation can secure the release of everyone. And I will tell you, using the example of Boko Haram, after they kidnapped the Dapchi girls, the Chibok girls, they shared the Chibok girls amongst the leaders of the group. By the time the Al-Banawi faction was created in August 2016, there were not less than 100 of those girls who left with them to their own camp, because a lot of the girls also married to commanders in both groups. So they took with them those girls. And the first attempt by the Nigerian government, the government of President Buhari, to secure the release of Chibok girls through the assistance of third-party elements like the Red Cross, like the Swiss government, was frustrated. Towards the last quarter of 2016, in a village between Mafa and Dikwa, the exchange was supposed to take place. But a rival faction stormed the scene and said, if you exchange these girls for any reason, if we exchange these girls, we'll go and slaughter all the girls in our possession. So at that point, that attempt to secure the release of the first set of Chibok girls failed. Because the faction that was not aware that we were dealing with a different faction. So the faction that was not aware that there was an attempt to exchange those girls for some prisoners, Boko Haram detainees on the Nigerian side, stormed the scene and said, no, if you try to exchange these girls, we'll go and kill all the girls in our possession. So at that, right there, the effort failed. They had to make fresh efforts before we now secured the release of the girls that we secured back then. And we still have up to 100 Chibok girls in captivity. I know that some are dead, some are married to Boko Haram fighters, and those ones have no plan to come back home.
It must be very, very agonizing. We have a caller from Sapele. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, go ahead with your contribution.
Okay.
Ruben,
okay.
Yes.
Yes, Ruben from Sapele. Good evening, Adekune Yusuf and Babachide Kolado.
Good evening.
Yes, see, let me bring it to your notice that it is not just the north that this insecurity is affecting at the moment. It's everywhere. Let me tell you something. In Sapele here, there is a route we normally take from Sapele to Onitsha. You see, these bandits, we like call them bandits now, or headsmen, attacked a bus going to Onitsha, carrying market women, killed the driver, and held hostage some of the passengers. Took them into the forest until now. This was about some few days ago. Until now, some of them are now accounted for. So you see, the problem is getting worse by the day. And I pray that the government should try. That's why we are talking about local policing, local vigilante like the Amatekun. Let every state begin to find a way to police their communities. And when they know that each state have arms protecting their community, it will go a long way to curb the excesses of these guys.
Thank you very much, Ruben from Sapele.
Okay.
It would
333.
333.
Yes, still with the abductors.
The abductors. Okay. Let's remain hopeful that Boko Haram is only boasting that indeed it has 523. But in the midst of this, Adekunle, the Senate is also expressing the same frustration across the land, but the president remains unfazed. Where are we in all of this?
We were on this program I think days ago when we spoke. We were so enthusiastic that the president had a good opportunity to share his ideas with not just leaders of the National Assembly, but with the entire, I think it was House of Reps. Believe me, it would have been a great opportunity. Many of these people in the National Assembly are not just lawmakers. Many of them have tremendous experience in security matters. Then you'll be able to learn from them, you'll be able to share your frustrations, and many of them will be able to assist you. And it wasn't meant to be a moment to embarrass or to just to be very peaceful, harmonious. But the president, didn't go after he had agreed that he would go. You know what we were told? They were started citing constitutional provisions that it is illegal, it is this, it is that. I don't know what is illegal in that. In this moment of grief, in this moment of insecurity, moment of hopelessness, anybody that wants to help, I think the president needs the assistance of everybody, and he himself, when he's not even asking for it, he should always embrace everybody who wants to assist. Now, the Senate has passed resolutions upon resolutions. Sack the service chiefs. It's only the president of Nigeria that is not convinced that the service chiefs are not delivering what Nigerians expect. It's only the president of Nigeria. I don't know anybody in Nigeria today that agrees with President Muhammadu Buhari that our service chiefs should not go home.
There are some dying in the wool.
And maybe some presidency officials.
Vicky, I'd also like your reaction to that, particularly because the Nobel laureate is also speaking. But let's take Adewale, who's calling us from Lagos. Adewale, go ahead with your contribution.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, my request is that though
Adewale, go ahead.
Good evening. Yeah, it's very, very pathetic to know that the numbers of children were taken away in our eyes, and nothing could be done up to today. But my humble request is the Senate and both the House of Reps and the Senate should please come together, rescue Nigeria from all these problems we are facing. Nobody knows who is going to be next. So travel in the day is problem, talk less of the night. You have kids in the north schooling, you are not at rest. I think it is high time that our senators and our House of Reps should be sincere. Because the fact remains this: nobody will listen or read what they are taking back home monthly, and so there will be no chaos, there will be security. It cannot be. People are suffering. People are
Thank
crying.
you very much. Thank you very much, Adewale for your contribution. Biko, to add to the Senate's frustration, the Nobel laureate who, refrains, from contributing to national issues these days, has also spoken. He says that the kidnap is a slap on the president's face. What are your thoughts on this?
Very much so. It's a slap. In fact, it's a kick in the groin. It's a kick in the groin to the president, not just a slap in the face. Because the president has a responsibility to protect the people. It is convenient for us to be body slamming the service chiefs, but somebody appointed them. And if you appointed people to a position and you do not give them KPI, where we work, we have KPI.
We have KPI.
If you don't deliver, then you could be told to go. They'll give you what's called PIP, a performance improvement program. After that, it is expected that you will improve. A situation in which people start regressing in their work, and there is no repercussion, no form of consequences for their regression, is disturbing, because that's what we are seeing. Look at the matter of NDDC. Look at what the minister Akpabio is doing with the NDDC, as if the NDDC belongs to him.
And the president has done nothing.
The president is doing nothing. The law does not permit you to have an interim management for the NDDC. As if that impunity was not enough, we now have a sole administrator in NDDC, where they had full complement of board members and other people who should be able to do some checks and balances, some oversight and all that. We had gargantuan corruption, impunity, sharing of money to themselves as palliatives, and claims that they were going to supervise projects during lockdown, when the roads were literally bare of cars or vehicles. We now have a sole administrator. You know what that means? These things are happening, and you just ask yourself questions. Come on, what's going on? You can only ask what is going on. That people can be permitted, can be given the latitude to do some of the things that they are doing, including also the Attorney General, some of the steps that he's taking. You wonder, shouldn't he have been stopped? Shouldn't he be told, no, you can't do this? Shouldn't an Akpabio be turned back, for example, by the president, say, no, this one you cannot do? But it's happening. So at the end of the day, all of that is happening. At the end of the day, we should not simply blame the service chiefs. It will be very hypocritical to be blaming the service chiefs. Yes, they have a responsibility to do the job that the president has given them. We've seen the president's wife in the past attack aides of the president because they chose not to do the work for which they were appointed. But the president has a responsibility to show anyone who is not measuring up the door. That's why you are the boss. That's why you are the decision maker. Obasanjo once told his aides that, look, I appointed you as my advisor, but I'm not obligated to take the advice that you give me. And I've seen occasions when he indeed refused to take the advice. The day he was going to hand over Mohammed Abacha to the Emir of Kano, after Mohammed Abacha stayed in detention for so long, they told him, no, but security report does not favor your going there. Obasanjo went to Kano and handed Mohammed Abacha over to the Emir of Kano, the late Emir of Kano. And he told the Emir that whenever we need him, we will come for him. So you are not obligated to take the advice that people give you. We have now seen that even some people have been giving the president bad advice. For example, he was happy to go and face the National Assembly people.
But the Attorney General?
But the Attorney General and some other bad advisors came up and said, no, you can't go, sir. And they started quoting the law. Meanwhile, the premise upon which the Attorney General began quoting the law was not the premise upon which the whole thing was placed. They asked, they invited, they did not summon. The Attorney General kept using the word summon.
Summon, yes.
They did not summon. They know that because when you summon, if he does not come, the IG of police is obligated to bring him, to arrest him, and make sure that he faces the National Assembly. But somebody who has constitutional immunity, you cannot do that to him. And they knew. That was why they set an invitation. And they gave him the respect that choose the time when you want, because he could simply turn down the invitation. You are now talking about someone. Who summoned? Who said he was going to summon? Nobody. I mean, we are bigger than this. Somebody the other day was talking, he said, Nigeria has become the poto of the African race. Poto means mud.
Mud.
You know? So
there's a critical question that we should all begin to think about. You know, if the police is constitutionally charged with tackling internal insurrection, and the army is charged with external aggression, and the army is overwhelmed as it is with Boko Haram seen, quote unquote, as a threat within, how can the army now fare if it was faced with a real external aggression? Before you answer that, Adekunle, let's take another caller on the line. Good evening. Okay, we'll take a break now before you take that question. The Watching Journalists Hangout will be back shortly. Don't go away.